Hello lovelies, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about old Hollywood feuds. So one of the most infamous feuds in old Hollywood is the feud between Joan Crawford and Bette Davis. I don't know if any of you guys watched that show Feud, but I was obsessed with it. So I highly recommend that show if you haven't. So it was in 1962 and Hollywood was about to see the biggest catfight in history. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford had long been rivals as they clawed their way to fame. Then the time came when the two aging actresses needed each other if they were to keep their fading careers alive. But on the set of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, things got out of control. Davis was thrilled to put on a grotesque clown makeup to play Baby Jane. Crawford, however, wanted to remain attractive despite her character, Blanche, being sickly and confined to a wheelchair. Davis said it was a constant battle to get her not to look gorgeous. Joan Crawford wanted her hair well dressed, her gowns beautiful, and her fingernails with red nail polish. For the part of an invalid who had been cooped up in the room for 20 years, she wanted to look attractive. She was wrong. But Crawford countered with this statement: Miss Davis was always partial to covering up her face in motion pictures. She called it art. Others might call it camouflage, a cover-up for the absence of any real beauty. So talk about a cat fight, and I plan on pursuing this matter in other future videos, so let me know if you want to learn more about the feud between Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. And another famous old Hollywood feud is Sophia Loren and Jayne Mansfield. And I actually discovered this one photo online which clearly illustrates the contempt Sophia Loren had for Jayne Mansfield. A Beverly Hills party was thrown in Loren's honor to introduce the Italian actress to Hollywood. But a braless Mansfield was determined to steal the show. Years later, Sophia Loren said this about the photo: Jayne Mansfield came right for my table. She knew everyone was watching. She sat down and now she was barely, listen, look at the picture. Where are my eyes? I'm staring at her nipples because I am afraid they are about to come onto my plate. In my face, you can see the fear. I'm so frightened that everything in her dress is going to blow out, boom, and spill over the table. Though numerous fans have asked Loren to autograph the photo over the years, she always refused. And another famous old Hollywood feud is between Vivian Vance and William Frawley. Famous for being the best friends of Lucy and Ricky Ricardo, Ethel, Vivian Vance, and Fred Mertz, William Frawley, hated each other from day one on I Love Lucy. Vance was 22 years Frawley's junior and thought they would be a terrible match as a TV couple. Frawley was a heavy drinker, and though he was warned not to drink while they were working, he often had to keep his hands in his pockets so the camera wouldn't catch them shaking from alcohol withdrawal. The two hated each other so intensely that when they had a shot at a spin-off show after I Love Lucy ended, Vance said no way. And another feud is Orson Welles and William Randolph Hearst. Citizen Kane is loosely based on the life and scandals of newspaper mogul William Randolph Hearst. Hearst was outraged by the film starring and directed by Orson Welles, and he forbid any of his newspapers from even mentioning it. Hearst even tried to purchase the original print and have it burned. But the thing that may have enraged Ernst the most is the mention of the word rosebud in the film. Several sources claim that rosebud was actually the name Hearst gave to the genitalia of his lover Marion Davies. And another feud is between Marlon Brando and James Dean. So this feud is a little confusing, but there's a quote from Marlon Brando about James Dean. Mr. Dean appears to be wearing my last year's wardrobe and using my last year's talent. This isn't surprising considering Dean was a rising star and Brando's competition. But then we discovered a book called James Dean, Tomorrow Never Comes, that claims Brando and Dean engage in a 50 Shades of Grey type relationship. Yes, S&M. The book claims that not only was Dean in love with Brando, but he would also let Brando burn him with cigarettes for his own twisted pleasure. Brando denied having a sexual relationship with Dean in his memoirs. Another famous old Hollywood feud is between Elizabeth Taylor and Debbie Reynolds. The actors Debbie Reynolds and Elizabeth Taylor first met at MGM when they were teenagers and became inseparable friends. Reynolds was even Taylor's matron of honor when Taylor married Mike Todd. But after Todd died in an airplane crash, Reynolds' husband, Eddie Fisher, father of Carrie Fisher, went to console Taylor, as Carrie Fisher said in her book, Wishful Drinking. Fisher left Reynolds alone with the 2 kids, but Taylor eventually left Fisher for Richard Burton. After 7 years of not speaking, Reynolds and Taylor discovered they were vacationing on the same cruise ship. They decided to have dinner and reconcile with each other. And another feud is with Bette Davis again, and this one is between Bette Davis and Tallulah Bankhead. So many people assume Bette Davis based her portrayal of Margot Channing in All About Eve on another aging actress with a big ego, Tallulah Bankhead. Bankhead didn't like Davis stealing her persona. Davis denied it. Tallulah herself, more than anyone else, accused me of imitating her as Margot Channing. The problem was that I had no voice at all when I started filming All About Eve due to emotional stress. This gave me the famous Bankhead husky voice. Otherwise, I don't think the similarity to Bankhead in my performance would ever have been thought of. Mary Orr, who wrote the short story The Wisdom of Eve that later became the hit movie, said that Bankhead asked her point blank if she based the character on her. Orr told her no and claimed this made Bankhead so angry she never spoke to me again. And another famous feud is Joan Fontaine and Olivia de Havilland. Sisters Olivia and Joan were born 15 months apart, and their rivalry started when they were just tots. Olivia earned a 7-year contract with Warner Brothers in 1935 and hired her sister as a chauffeur. Joan Fontaine claims a producer spotted her waiting for her sister and suggested she act in movies as well. When Joan Fontaine told the story to her mother, she was warned that Warner Brothers was her sister's studio. Not wanting to be associated with her sister, the hopeful actress changed her last name to Fontaine and got an agent. Both sisters had wonderful film careers, but spent years not speaking to each other, oftentimes squabbling over men like Howard Hughes and writer Marcus Goodrich. Both had a competitive streak and never fully repaired their relationship. And another famous feud is Laurence Olivier and Marilyn Monroe. Actor Laurence Olivier had starred in the stage version of The Prince and the Showgirl with his wife, actress Vivian Lee. But when the opportunity came about to make the movie version of the play, Lee was 43 and considered too old. Marilyn Monroe was cast as the showgirl, much to Olivier's dismay. He taunted her and berated her for being late, forgetting her lines and needing to have her method acting coach on set all the times. But Monroe did get back at him. When she found out Olivier was secretly taking bets on how many takes Monroe would need to perform a very difficult scene, she hatched a plan. That night, Monroe went home and studied the scene extensively. When it came to shoot it, she did one perfect take, closing the door behind her as she left the room. Seconds later, she came back into the room and said, "Pretty good, huh?" And another feud is Frank Sinatra and Shelley Winters. Shelley Winters, once a roommate of Marilyn Monroe, was the type of woman who wouldn't take no for an answer. Born to a poor immigrant family, she worked hard, first in the theater, then in film, and it paid off. She won 2 Oscars, one for The Diary of Anne Frank in 1959 and one for The Poison Adventure in 1972. Winters had a brassy personality and liked to kiss and tell about her romantic affairs with Marlon Brando, Sean Connery, whom she claimed to have made love to on a train all the way from Liverpool to London. But she failed to charm actor and crooner Frank Sinatra when they starred together in Meet Danny Wilson in 1952. He called her a bow-legged bee of a Brooklyn blonde, to which she said she screamed like a fishwife and slugged him. She also called him skinny with no talent, and then there's a bunch of swear words. The two never acted together again. And another feud is Sir John Gielgud and Ingrid Bergman. Despite acting with Ingrid Bergman in Murder on the Orient Express and directing her in the play The Constant Wife, Sir John was not a fan of her work, saying Ingrid speaks 5 languages and can't act in any of them. The New York Times agreed with him in its review of The Constant Wife, saying, "Moreover, Miss Bergman, so interesting in her particular style of film acting, is not at all that technically gifted on the stage. She has a definite presence and certainly a vigorous personality, but is perhaps more of a character than a character actress. Her slight and charming Swedish intonation is here no asset." But it was Bergman who had the last laugh. She won the Oscar for her role of Greta in Murder on the Orient Express, and Gielgud wasn't even nominated. And another feud is Bea Arthur and Betty White. Bea Arthur was a powerful actress, but never expressed any warm and fuzzy feelings about her fellow actors. Even Arthur's adopted son Matthew Sachs admits she could be testy, saying, "My mom wasn't really close to anybody. I'm not saying she was a loner, but she just liked to go home and read the paper." But it was her fellow Golden Girls star Betty White who really irritated her. White loved to go out and talk to the studio audience when they were filming and always had a positive attitude. In fact, Arthur reportedly called White the C-word after White was the first of the actresses to win an Emmy for the show. And another feud is between Walter Matthau and Barbra Streisand. Incredibly talented as an actress and a singer, Barbra Streisand rose to stardom quickly. When she made Hello, Dolly in 1969, she was used to calling the shots. Her co-star Walter, who just won an Oscar for Fortune Cookie, didn't like the woman running the show. He said, "I have more talent in my smallest fart than you have in your entire body," he told her, obviously intimidated by her. He especially hated it when Streisand gave advice to the film's director. He went to the head of the 20th Century Fox to complain. And the head of the 20th Century Fox, "I'd love to help you, but this is not Hello, Walter. We are making." Walter apparently got over it because he attended Barbra Streisand's charity concert in 1986. And another feud is between Faye Dunaway and Roman Polanski. Actress Faye Dunaway and director Roman Polanski seriously clashed on the set of Chinatown. Polanski is said to have plucked a stray hair from Dunaway's head because it was ruining his shot. Also, when Dunaway once asked what her motivation was in a scene, Polanski said it was her paycheck. But the worst incident came when Dunaway was filming a scene in a car and needed a bathroom break. Polanski said no, irking Dunaway so much she urinated into a cup and threw the liquid at him. Dunaway later denied the incident. So thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know if you've heard of any of these feuds before and if you want me to talk about any other old Hollywood feuds. Alright, I'll see you guys again soon. Bye!